We're here with Dietterich, all the way from Australia, from Brisbane, Australia. Yesterday she was asking a lot of questions at dinner, and I thought let's switch the tables and I'll do the asking questions this afternoon.
For sure.
If you allow
Go
me.
ahead.
Your company 2M is active in interpreting, and I thought that would be a really good opportunity to find out a little bit more about the interpreting space in Australia and how you're adapting to the new tech space. So my first question would be around what strategies 2M Language Services is using to implement and incorporate the new technologies and AI-driven solutions in particular.
Thank you. We're 2M Language Services, Australia and New Zealand's language service provider and language technology provider indeed. And apart from interpreting, we'll talk about that in a second, also localization translation. In terms of AI, we look at the problem and then we do reverse engineering. Bushfires, wildfires, I believe they're called here, a big problem, and hence emergency management, right? In Australia, we have 51.5% of our population was born overseas or has parent born overseas, right? So we need to make sure that the message gets across to our culturally, linguistically diverse communities as well as First Nations. And for that, the need for speed, right? And if you need speed, you need AI. So for example, in the state of Victoria, Melbourne, that is, Victorians have the Vic Emergency app on their phone, which gives them public warnings on emergency alerts, on bushfires, on weather events. And we help develop the AI translator for the Vic Emergency app Plus that publishes within less than 10 seconds those alerts into Arabic, simplified Chinese, community languages. This is not a Google Translate widget. This is a trained engine, calibrated by linguists, gone out to community, validated, make no mistake, labeled AI.
Yeah.
But this is a great example and use case of language AI solutions for our clients.
Interesting. And you just touched upon it already. It's not just the main languages that you surface. You do a lot of emerging languages, First Nation, I believe you call it, and indigenous languages. What are some of the challenges and opportunities with that space? I actually interviewed Lawson Stapleton not too long ago. That's a passion of his as well. So I'd love your take on that. What are the challenges and opportunities with those languages?
Sure. Yes, indeed. I mean, of course, we do Pacific Island languages. Do you know what they are? We're talking Samoan, Tongan, Nauruan, Tuvaluan, Gilbertese, Bislama, that is Vanuatu, Doc Basin in PNG, Solomon Island Pidgin. So many of these languages, we do them, Maori, of course, First Nations languages. And I was, a long time ago, I was actually a previous manager of the Kimberley Aboriginal Interpreter Service.
Oh, wow.
So this is really important as well in terms of First Nations languages and challenges. Grassroots, right? In First Nations languages, you need credibility, right? You need the elders, the communities behind you. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? Contexts are different, concepts are different, right? Time frames are different. Lack of practitioners. The whole source text in emergency management. I mean, what are the warnings? Watch and act is a standard warning of the Australian warning system language. What does that mean? Watch or act, So the source text first has to be adapted. In the first place, you have to have a lot of flexibility, flexibility, in terms of you can't promise the old on time, on budget, be very careful. But of course, you need, number one, you need to know the people.
The human touch is really important to develop those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, so, I mean, even today with First Nations languages, the elders will remember and say, yes, that's TS company. Work with that. Work with people. As you know, I just presented this morning here at Gala on building and training an engine for emergency management in Yolngu, which is Northern Territory language group, right? I mean, we don't even have a stock engine to play with. We have to create the engine first. So there's a lot. Where does the funding come from? You know, where are the permits? But yeah, look, it's very important. And as we heard, you know, because I was presenting, you know, through a video also with Leonora Didi, my First Nations colleague, and she fantastically, says, if you hear children speaking language, so what I'm saying is, and you know that from Lawson as well, while we're creating language access and we're creating these resources, we're actually at the same time preserving language that's a cultural heritage of a country.
Yeah, that's a really noble goal. Of course, when I think of Australia, I think of even larger distances than the United States where I reside. Before COVID, there was really, in the United States at least, there was not a lot of remote interpreting taking place. There's kind of a difficult thing to find acceptance for. After COVID, we've seen a real movement to do a lot more things over Zoom and the likes. What's the evolution been like for you in Australia when it comes to those types of technologies?
Well, when COVID hit, we were really prepared. We had for RSI, as it's called in our industry, remote simultaneous interpreting and remote video interpreting, we were all set up. In our case, the market wasn't ready for that. The vendors were not ready for that, you know. They were up in arms that maybe interpreters in low-cost country were going to take their jobs. Then COVID hit, and suddenly what had seemed like a threat became a lifeline. What are we doing now? So so we do interpreting across federal courts, across states and hospitals. And in Perth Royal Hospital, for example, we've got Larry and Luna. Larry and Luna are two iPads on a card, right? And in the emergency department, this is rolled out in other hospitals across Australia. In Brisbane, in the Prince Charles Hospital, they're calling them Charles and Camilla, by the way. That's where the clinicians click on a language, on the gender, and medical human interpreters, right? NAATI certified interpreters appear. So now we can use this. Now this is accepted. And again, the need for speed. This is time critical language access for health equity. Extremely important. And where's this going to in the future? Interesting, because whilst hospitals were in the beginning saying, no, we want them on site, you could see children in a children's. Well, they were drawn to an iPad, to screens, right? They preferred that. Then to some of the on-site interpreters are actually an aging workforce in Australia. And now going to AI interpreting, which is coming, make no mistake, not to replace interpreters. As a matter of fact, we have a critical shortage of interpreters in Australia. So this would be going to non-critical contexts like triage, but with an avatar. In colors, right? So this is what we're seeing, for example, in healthcare, and you can adjust it to a children's hospital, always, of course, with strict data security, solutions that are hosted on-prem. But yeah, that's an exciting future, and to go where otherwise you have no language access, and without language access, you don't have health equity.
Tia, it's been a super interesting short talk with you here. You're going to promise me we're going to have to do it in Australia one of these days, or we need to organize a conference in Australia because I want to travel there. That's bucket list for me. I've not been there, but thank you so very much for
it's been a pleasure.
Spending some time
Thank
with
you
us.
very much.
Appreciate it.